You're listening to DruidCast episode 177. Hello my friends and welcome to DruidCast episode 177. I am your host Dave the Bard, and DruidCast is brought to you on or around the 20th of the month by the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids. If you want to find out more about the Order and our courses, you can do that on our website at www.druidry.org. Yes, we are back after our December break, and I hope you had a good festive season, and I wish you all a happy new year. May 2022 bring you wonder and joy. We had a good time and the break was very welcome, so I'll probably do that each year going forward. But DruidCast is back and will land with you at its usual time until December this year. Opening the show, you heard Odd Fellows Casino's new single Trespass, coming out on February the 1st, and it's an anthemic, rabble-rousing tribute to the Kinder Scoutman Trespass of 1932, the Green and Common Women, and other suitably rebellious figures from history and fiction. Always a pleasure to hear new music from them, so thank you for sending that in to the show. I'm off out into the Sussex countryside for this month's Walking the Talk with Druid author and runologist Suzanne Rance. So, hey, it's a beautiful winter's day. There's blue sky, it's clear, the air is chilled. So, pop on those walking boots and join us out on the South Downs for this month's Walking the Talk. Walking the Talk, an interview series for DruidCast. So I have been brought to Highdown Hill, and I'm here with Sue Rance, a member of our Grove, somebody I've known for many, many years. In fact, I knew you before you were in the Grove, when you were on a different path as well. The sun is shining, the sky is clear blue. It's a perfect winter's day for a walk. So come on then, Sue. Hello, Dave.
All
right, okay.
Lovely to see you.
It is. Yes, I think
really
we've seen
is.
each other. Wow, that's a good point. We've seen each other probably 3 times in the last 2 years.
Yes, probably. Which is ridiculous, isn't it?
It is.
We were pretty much seeing each other most of the time with Grove and camps and all sorts of other bits and pieces. And yes.
And then suddenly it all stops.
Yes.
So the ground is lovely and hard, even though it's frosty. Well, it's because it's frosty, but I bet this would be muddy if it wasn't.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, and we're heading up a hill on the South Downs. Now, you told me that this is the South Downs just now.
Yes.
Okay.
Technically it is.
The South Downs.
The South Downs.
Right.
It's a little bit of downs. It's part of the South Downs National Park, but eons ago in history there was a row of downs south of the South Downs, and this is pretty much all that's left of it.
Right, okay.
It got washed away by the sea.
It got washed
ultimately.
away by the sea. Wow. Okay.
These little bits left. It's
Yeah.
quite lovely.
It really is. And do you know about the history of the South Downs? Because I've got people listening to this all over the world who are going to go, the South Downs. Okay, so we are in Sussex, in the south of England.
Yes.
And it's a chalk kind of, well, it's a range of chalk hills, isn't it?
It is. It's a range of chalk hills. The South Downs itself has got not very far from here. In fact, you can see it from here. A place called Sisbury Ring, which is one of the oldest flint mines that we've got in England. Well, in Britain, I think.
Right.
So it has long history. One side of this hill is the sea, a little bit of flatland and the sea, and the other side is the South Downs, and then you've got the Weald, which is historically a soggy, muddy piece of flattish land with rises, and then you've got the North Downs and then London.
Oops, I say it's slippery as well.
Oh, yes, it's got in the sunshine now.
Yeah, it's melted away.
Yes.
Yes, so we're now on mud. And so, South Downs, the chalk and flint mines.
Yes.
So this whole area was at the bottom of the sea, wasn't it?
It would have been, yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Right way back, this was at the bottom of the sea, and the chalk, as far as I can remember, is like made up of like sea creatures and things like that.
Yes, and even the flint, which is a very, very hard, very sharp stone that you find within the chalk.
Mm-hmm.
I found out last night from the telly.
Yeah.
Has the same smell as coral. So weird. There was a program on TV, and it was Martin Clunes in Tahiti.
Right.
And he was talking with the people who live there, and this guy was telling him that this particular food that he was making, can't remember what the food was cooked with coral. And when he rubbed the two bits of coral together, it had a smell,
Right.
which was quite nice. You know, it's own things. But Martin Clune says, you know, it smells like flint. And the other goes, yes, it does smell like flint. So maybe the flint in the chalk is actually really, really hardly compacted coral.
Maybe it is.
Maybe.
Wow. What that does say to me, though, is Martin Clunes has decided at some point in his life to sniff a flint.
Flint, yes. I mean, traditionally, sort of later on, flint was definitely used to light things. Yeah.
Yes.
Flint and iron.
Yes.
And you can spark it off. I wouldn't put it in a fire; it'll explode.
Yeah. Yes.
Very, very hard. And a lot of our buildings down here are made of flint.
Mm-hmm.
Sussex flint walling.
And of course, you know, in prehistory, it was the first cutting tool that we had as you know, human beings, wasn't it? It was and I guess that remained and was the reason for the flint mines.
Yes, definitely.
At Sisbury and
there's another one called Churchill.
Yeah.
Sisbury being that. I know you can't see this, people, but there's a promontory there. That's Sisbury.
Okay, so we're looking over a valley, a wooded valley. There's is that what town is that? Is that
that's Findon. So that's north
Findon.
of Worthing, Findon.
Yeah, and then the downs above the town, and you can see a copse of trees, and that would be the massive Sisbury Hill, Sisbury Ring.
Yes.
A full. Is it a kilometre or a mile around? I can never remember which one it is, but it's a massive
I think
earthworks.
it's more like a mile around.
Yeah,
it is big.
It's
very,
the biggest
very big.
hill fort in the south of England, as far as I can tell.
So it's quite interesting. As we go further up the hill, of course, you'll be able to see more of the positioning of this. You'll be able to see the separation from here and the South Downs, and then there's the sea as well. So and if it's really, really nice, you can see the Isle of Wight from here.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Fantastic. And there's a hill fort uphill.
Yes. So we'll start to get that in our view in a minute. We come through a band of trees there.
Yeah.
And see where the tree clump is.
Yeah.
Used to be all the rage to plant clumps of trees on the tops of
Absolutely.
hills.
Yeah. Chanctonbury being the classic local one of those.
Yes. So that's up there, and there's all sorts of oddities and lovely little histories.
Mm-hmm.
We've just passed the Miller's Tomb. Might talk about that a bit later.
The Miller's Tomb.
The Miller's Tomb. Okay.
So you can't say we just passed the Miller's Tomb and say I'm going to talk about it later. What's the Miller's Tomb?
The Miller was a guy in the 18th century, born somewhere close to the early part of 1700s and died, I think, in 1797. Mm-hmm. He was a miller. His name was John Oliver. He lived south of the South Downs here, but then he inherited a mill which was up on the top, and he built a house which was around here somewhere, I think.
Right, okay.
Some people say he was a bad man.
Oh, really?
Yes,
oh
yes.
Oh, dear.
Smugglers.
Oh, I love that.
So
I love that.
So this
smugglers just makes me want to talk like a pirate.
Yeah. So just south of here, you've got you can see the sea, and then you can see the land and the beach, and there's a place called Ferring, which is a really old name. It could be the people of the boat.
Oh, okay.
To fare,
in
as in Old English.
Yeah.
And you've got Goring, which is Garringers or something, which is the people of the spear. And
sounds like a dodgy place to live.
Yeah, well, this could be actually.
You wouldn't have thought it was Goring now, would you?
Very old. No, you wouldn't. Definitely not. Definitely not.
Yeah.
But John Oliver lived up here, and it is said that he would signal the smugglers if those customs men, what are they called? I can't remember what they're called.
I'm sure they had very many names of them.
Yes, and very rude ones.
Yes.
But he was also somebody who was very, very clever at making models and engines and things like that. And what he actually did was he made wind-powered models that sat on the front of his house, and one of them was an old lady chasing one of these customs men with a bag of flour, and as the wind blew, it would hit him over the head. Yeah, he was notoriously eccentric. Some people say it was the way he turned the sails of his windmill, because it would be seen all along the coast here.
Yeah.
If he did.
Okay, so that was like a signal for the smugglers
Signal
to say,
for the smugglers.
bring the rum aboard, my man.
Yes,
Yeah, something
that's the
like
one.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
wow.
great story.
We've got loads of eccentrics in Sussex.
We
haven't
do.
You know,
Yeah.
old Mad Jack Fuller out of Brooklyn, buried in his pyramid in the church and all that sorts of stuff. And I remember, do you remember the old guy who used to stand at the roundabout?
Definitely.
Can't remember his name, but he would be dressed there in a
definitely a 1920s summer boater.
That's right, yeah.
And light suit with stripes on it.
Yeah.
And he was at his bicycle and he waved to everybody.
Just waved at everybody at the roundabout.
Yeah, I miss him.
I do. Me,
Yes.
I used to, I used to drive down there and there he is. Yes. Good old Sussex eccentric tradition, right there.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
The miller's eccentricity, he built his tomb and his coffin 27 years before he died.
Right.
And he arranged for his funeral to have, there were 2,000 people went to his funeral. He must have paid a lot of money out, I think.
Wow.
But there was a whole cohort of young women all dressed in white that surrounded his coffin as it was paraded to his final resting place just down there on the hill. And he built a special machine to be able to move his coffin up the hill on this rough ground. It's because nobody could actually carry it all the way up. So he made this special sort of cart for that.
Amazing. And he lived up here somewhere. Do we know where the windmill is?
I know where the windmill was.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And that's just the other side of the fort, so we can have a look when they go around there.
Okay.
From up here, well, again you can see Sisbury.
Yeah.
Crown of trees right away over there, I think, is Chanctonbury.
That does indeed look like Chanctonbury Ring.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
And they say that this hill was actually on the crossroads of two really old travelling roads.
Yeah.
One went from I suppose it was further than Arundel. It might have been as far as across the Isle of Wight.
Yeah.
Along this way, straight down towards Brighton. As you can see Brighton now,
I can see my house almost. I see the chimney anyway.
Probably
the
even
power
Beachy
station.
Head over there.
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
Wow, what a view!
It's an amazing view.
It is. Yes.
And there's another road that goes from south up to north, and it goes up to the other side of the South Downs. So that's the beginning of the South Downs.
Yeah.
There you have Clapham Woods.
Clapham Woods. Yes.
Of great fame.
Is that it?
Yes, that's Clapham Woods.
Oh, no, I've been in there many times, but I haven't seen it from the outside before.
So it goes across the ground there.
Yes. Well, Clapham Woods is where in my early days, I think I've told this on a DruidCast, I think it was with last month even, it was, we used to go there very early on in my pagan path when we had a little eclectic group for the festivals, and we went there for one Samhain, and we found a pit in the woods, and there were lots of these little pits, and we held our Samhain ceremony there. It had hazel trees overhanging this little pit, and you could have a little fire in the pit and no one could see you because it was so low. And of course I later found out that all those pits are plague pits.
So they're plague pits. They also had in Clapham itself, they had one of those secret auxiliary units during the war.
Right. Oh, okay.
And they weren't supposed to be known about by anybody. And they had a
well, maybe they
headquarters.
utilised
They did.
the plague pits.
They might have done, yes.
And of course, holding a ceremony at Samhain on literally
On the
standing
pit,
above the bodies of hundreds of people. It was an interesting ritual, that one, I've got to say, and
so,
but it's, all done with honour and respect for the space. So anyway, right. Well, we're nearly at the thing, so let's shut this off. I'll pick pick it up again in a minute.
Okay.
Okay, so a little further on towards the hill fort, I can see that's one of the ramparts just there, is it? Okay, we've stopped on this lovely green vista overlooking the sea that way. They've got, like I say, Beachy Head and Brighton there. I can see I love that view of the wind turbines. I've got to say, it gives me hope. Some people think it's ugly, but I look at that and go, no, that's to me, that's a step in a lovely direction.
It is, definitely a step in the right direction.
Yeah. Out to sea there. So why have you brought me here? What's your connection with Highdown Hill?
So this is my roots.
Right.
Really. If you look down there towards the sea, on the coast, you can see a church spire. That's the church that my parents got married in.
Uh-huh.
They live a little bit further to the east. And my dad's house is still there, although unfortunately he's had to move into a home.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I grew up. So Highdown was always a little Sunday jaunt, or
with the family,
and at
stuff,
Christmas as well. If it was lovely at Christmas, we'd walk up here and things like that.
Boxing Day walk or something like that.
Yes, and then I'd also bring my daughter up here for a walk and come to a walk myself. So although I don't live in Goring, which is where I grew up, I actually live in Rustington, which you can see from here as well.
Yeah.
So Littlehampton's where that block of flats is.
Right.
This way is Rustington.
Okay.
And I can actually walk to here from Rustington, walk up, and I used to sometimes walk up round here, back down the hill, down to Goring.
Right.
To see my dad when he was at home. So that's why. So it's a place I've always come to think things over.
Mm-hmm.
It's very historical. The ramparts you can see, so that's late Iron Age, and there's in the centre of it there's actually a Saxon cemetery. So there's those, and then there's all the eccentricities of. I'll show you where the mill was in a minute.
So you're Sussex born and bred?
Yes, Sussex born and bred. I was born in Southlands Hospital, which is in Shoreham, near where you live.
I know, I've visited it on a couple of occasions.
Yeah.
Right, okay. And do you feel a real connection to Sussex? Do you see it as a home? I mean, could you live anywhere else, do you think? Or I
can live elsewhere. I did live in Wales for 7 years. But I must admit, what Wales did for me was to make me realise where my home used to be. Because when you grow up somewhere, you often really don't notice what's around you. I mean, I must admit, moving into paganism helps to do that.
Yes.
It helps to look at the land that you're on, look at the land that's around, look at the history that's around and everything else like that.
Yeah.
But I think I found out more about the history from down here when I lived in South Wales than I did when I was living here. Weirdly.
Is that kind of your own version of a Sussex Hiraeth, do you reckon?
No, it was learning sort of about Celtic Christianity.
Okay.
It was just learning about. I wanted to know more about the land that I was in, so I was reading a lot of Celtic histories. And Anne Ross wrote a big book on Celtic history, archaeology. She was the historian.
Pagan Celtic Britain.
Yes, Pagan Celtic Britain.
Yeah.
And in it, she spoke about the pits, the long pits that they would find things in, dedicated to the gods of below.
Yeah.
And things like that, and we're going to be overrun by dogs.
We're going to be overrun with dogs and people. Here we go. See that every Walk in the Talk DruidCast needs to have. I'll walk over here a little bit.
But what did happen with that? I discovered that one of those pits is just over there, Dave. Just over there.
Yeah.
If you're looking towards where Chanctonbury is, actually, if you stand here and go to the other side of where Clapham Woods is, into Long Furlong, it's just up there.
Oh, right.
It's 127 feet deep. It's lined with flint at the bottom.
And it's just, is there anything around it?
No. Oh, well, yes, there is, because just at the back of it is a late Iron Age spiritual complex. There was a late Iron Age village on the hill, and then a temple at the top.
Okay.
And then down the bottom was this pit. They don't normally go together. They're talked, or shaft, a ritual
Yeah,
shaft.
yeah.
But they're not really talked about as being together. And yet these two were.
Yeah.
It's marked as a Roman well on the maps.
Yeah.
But
So it's Romano-British. I think,
Romano-British,
yeah.
It was a Romano-British hill.
But contemporary with the ancient Druids, probably.
Yes.
Which is really
and,
what I love about this, where we're going now.
Yes.
So it's this.
Yes.
This hill fort.
This whole thing is contemporary
with
who we believe the ancient Druids to have been and there's no reason why it wasn't.
No. I mean, they found I think a golden cauldron at Hollingbury, for instance, didn't they? And one of the big things there, and that's not that far from here. It's probably over there somewhere. Yeah.
One of the finds that they've made at the temple was actually like a plaster foot, as if it was somebody trying to do get some healing, ask for some healing. And there was also a Romano-British. It was a fish.
Yeah. And
other things like that they found on the temple are actually very much related to Nodens.
To Nodens, okay. That might be a new name to a lot of people listening. So what do we know about Nodens? Well,
Nodens was a god of hunting, but he also had a fishing and hunting and healing and things like that. And he's related, they say, etymologically to Neath and the old Celtic gods in that respect. So although he himself is a Romano-British god, he's related to the Celtic.
And are there any images of Nodens to sort of suggest?
No, it's more to do with his name and to do with the things that they find. There might be, but I don't know very much. On the River Severn, there's a big temple complex, big Roman, but that's dedicated to him, definitely.
Okay, so this is not a local deity we're talking about
not
here.
A local deity, no.
Interesting, isn't it?
So that's fascinating.
Yeah, because he's a name that does not come up very often in like lists of Celtic gods.
No.
But obviously, at one point, his worship was very important.
Yes.
And if this god Nodens was revered at that time, was there, and it feels like there was an acceptance of the Roman kind of occupation that this worship could still go ahead, I guess.
Well, I think it was at the time when the Romans were actually ruling.
Yeah.
And they had soldiers from all over Europe.
Yes.
And so, it could well be related to any god from Europe that had originally had the same roots as perhaps Neath and that, although, Leith or Neath also has relationships with Gaul. Because Gwyn ap Neath could be Gwyn, the son of Nodens.
Oh, I love that stuff.
And then when I told you that the temple was on the top, and then there was a shaft on the bottom, who would be in the shaft but a god of the underworld?
Exactly.
Yes.
So what are those offerings going to? Exactly.
Yes.
Wow.
So, you've got actually a site where the two ritual places are within a short walking distance of each other.
Amazing. So we've arrived at the ramparts. There's double ramparts here.
Yes.
There's two. There's a lower one and a higher one. And a lovely holm oak right there.
Yes, there's
evergreen
a few
oak. Oh, there's quite a few, isn't there?
Yeah.
So I've been here once before, to the place where we are standing here, a holy site, a sacred site, where you had your hand fasting. I remember it very well that day, and it must have been lovely to have that ceremony at a place so important to you.
Yeah.
With your life and history and stuff.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. I mean, it's a beautiful place, and it was a place where everybody could come and feel quite relaxed. They had people walking around it.
Yeah.
That was all right. And it It was wonderful. I can't explain how wonderful it was. One, to have all of my friends here.
Yeah.
'Cause I've been married more than once, by the way. You tend to do things as other people want you to, don't you, when you're young?
Yeah, yeah.
So I, quite happily say my first wedding was very much involved with my parents, and it was something that I wouldn't necessarily have wanted for myself. But it was nice, it was lovely, and everything else like that. It was traditional.
Yeah.
Given the chance for this one, have all of my friends and my family around, and we walked up the hill, and we had Kate and Corwin doing pipe and sabre up the hill, marching us all up the hill, and then there was this lovely area here, and it was just beautiful. It was sunny. It was a bit windier than today.
Yes.
But at least it was sunny and it wasn't wet.
Yeah.
And this is the middle of the Iron Age hill fort.
Okay.
Pretty much.
Interesting. It's not huge.
No, it isn't.
It's like if there was a community here, it would be quite a small one, I would have thought.
Yes.
Yeah. Are there evidence of activity and stuff?
They found one late Iron Age body.
Right.
It might be that they mostly use this for sacred
ceremony.
If you live down south of here, then you've only got flat land to the sea.
Yeah.
And just up here, you are just surrounded by the land, the sea, and the sky.
Yeah.
I can imagine it very much being a place like that for communal gathering.
Yes.
And in fact, even today, if it wasn't for the fact for COVID, every midsummer they get a group of Morris dancers come up here, and loads of people come up here, and they have all sorts of party, picnic. Open for free.
For the dawn?
Some people stay for dawn.
Yeah.
Some people just come for the sort of the late going into the dark bit.
Yeah.
And that's just a totally free.
Do you know, it's interesting,
together.
those things. I bet a lot of people who come to that would not identify as pagan or anything like that, but there's something about those traditions, like the Beltane tradition at the Long Man, where the Long Man Morris go and dance there, and this one here, there is something within everybody, I think, that just knows there's something else going on, and needs to connect to it,
Yes.
And is that so? Okay, so what brought you to this path in the first place? Let's go back a little while.
Go back.
Yeah.
Well, we were going right back into the 1980s.
Oh, heavens above, no, surely not.
Yes.
Right.
And I suppose I was a bit of hiatus. I could not connect to the Christianity that I was associated with, although I was never taken to church as a child. My parents joined a naturist club, which is weird for some people, when I was 5.
Yeah.
And my mum then would always say, well, we worship the sun. She said that until I joined the first path, which was witchcraft, in which case she turned around and said I ought to join the local church. I thought, I've just chosen a path where the sun is part of the worship, part of the deity.
That's not quite what I meant.
No. Love her.
Yeah.
But, so I joined Wicca because I didn't find anything Druidic. There wasn't really, because it was late 80s, sort of 86.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's before.
I was looking into it before that.
Founded in 88, so it was before that. Yeah.
So I found a local group and I joined them. They're really nice people. Mm-hmm. And I started on this journey of learning loads and loads and loads about different gods and goddesses and things like that. And as I've travelled my path, I found myself changing. Yeah. Because if you don't, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I think this is, and then I came to one of your very early camps.
Yes.
And I actually fell in love with the Druidry that I found there, with the people that I found there, and they were more open because the Wicca that I belong to, as in old traditional Wicca, is very sort of secretive.
Yes, of course.
And I was often finding that secretive aspect, which I totally appreciate, as being a place where a lot of people would go to hide or pretend. They could turn around and say, I've got loads and loads of power. Oh, I can't tell you that because you're not the right degree.
Yeah, okay.
There was lots and lots of sort of hidden that could be abused. I'm not saying that the people I were with were abusive, but you could see how that would happen, and that doesn't fit with my nature.
No, it fits with some people.
It does,
and
yes.
I can see the attraction of it.
Yes.
Because there is that. People love a mystery.
Yes.
People love mystery and mysticism.
Yes.
And of course, if there's something hidden and occult,
Yes.
it's really fabulous and
Yeah.
interesting. And
Yeah.
I totally get why people's draw to that kind
Yes,
of thing.
yes.
And it's of course all of that is still within Druidry. It's just
It
that.
is.
What I liked about it was the fact that we could do these open camps,
Yes.
and that we aren't oath bound to secrecy.
Yeah.
So we can be a lot more open with people when people say, "What do you do?" I can really, really talk very openly about what I do, and I did appreciate that difference. Whereas, I had at that time, my time was like the very early '90s, late '80s, early '90s, and I couldn't work out how I could know if I wanted to be part of this if no one could tell me what I was joining.
Yes, I would agree with that.
That was what I couldn't work out. It's like, no, well, you work with us for a year and a day, and then you have to ask for initiation. And what will I get after my initiation? Well, I can't tell you that.
No.
Well, how do I know I want it then? And so that didn't work for me. As I say, it's fine for other people.
It is, definitely.
It didn't work for me at all.
And a lot of people do find it intriguing and are very fulfilled by it.
Yeah.
And to a certain degree I wouldn't say I've totally left it behind, but I carried on my journey. And I think what I found personally with it, and it wasn't necessarily from the group that I was with, it's from the others I'd met in bits and pieces, that once you're in one group, you either leave them to learn whatever, or you stay and learn within that group, and not everybody within that group wants to learn the same things as you.
Yeah, right.
I was never really that interested in magic in early years. I was, as a child, I must admit to not being a magical being at all.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually made fun of a little girl whose mother had sown the leaves in the trees and said it was the local fairies, and I'm going, no, it's not. I don't know whether it's because I had such a really secure upbringing that I had no need for that. And so I came from a base which was really quite. I didn't really believe in anything other than what I saw.
Okay.
I loved what I saw. I loved the nature. I love everything else. I love the connections. And so when I joined into witchcraft, it was definitely more for the eight celebrations of the year, and learning to celebrate the nature that was around.
Yeah.
And it was the only place I could get that from at that time. So when I move on into after the first camp, I'm thinking, I love these people.
Yes.
I love the use of voice for the Awen. I love the friendliness and just the getting together and having fun bit of it. So I want to learn more. So I joined OBOD.
Yeah.
Just to learn more about it, and then I just fell in love.
That's where you've stayed. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also it allows me to go and learn about Saxons, which is another thing that's here.
Yeah.
Although they're not necessarily Druids, they're part of our historical past. They had their own belief systems that we don't know 100% about on anything. So it's all part of that sort of history connection. And as I've grown up over the years, I have more interest in magic now.
Yeah.
Because I've learned what true magic is.
Yes. Well, you've seen it, experienced it.
Yes.
Yeah, those camps, for instance, were very.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
amazing.
many things happen there that you can't just kind of go, oh, okay then.
Yeah.
This stuff is real.
Yes. So now I believe 100% in magic.
Yeah.
I've gone from no to not to 100. When it was really, really fashionable to plant loads and loads of trees on the tops of hilltops, somebody called Mr. Henty wanted to put trees on the top of this fort. And before he did that, they did some digging to see, and they found a Saxon burial site.
Okay.
It's pretty much all around this side more. There was a 1800s I think it was 1832 or something like that, archaeological dig where they took the bits out that they thought were interesting, left the other bits and pieces, unfortunately separated people's skulls from the rest of their bodies because skulls were interesting, bodies weren't. There wasn't, all sorts of things like that.
I love the Victorians.
And lots of finds, and they decided that it was definitely a Saxon burial site.
Right.
In fact, it's one of the earliest Saxon burial sites.
Do they know what year it would have been?
The early 400s.
Early 400s, so
you've got the
Christian.
crossover between the Romans as well.
Yeah.
And there is Roman glass that was found in some of these burial sites.
Within the Saxon Saxon burial site?
Yes, within...
Oh, so these are real early arrivals.
Yes, they are, really, really early. There's other early arrivals at Alfriston.
Yeah.
There's another, and Eastbourne, they've got a couple of other burial sites that are this early. Mm-hmm. Not very many of these are found at this early stage. They think it's perhaps because it's not far from Selsey, which was a great big market area, and on the Isle of Wight, which we've just seen, that's where they have Jutish burials. Some of the fashion here of the wares was Jutish as well.
Right.
So there's not very many jutes, and they came from...
So what's the difference between Jutes and Saxons?
So supposedly the Saxons came from Saxony, which was a Norse-German group, an area. The Jutes, Jutland. The Jutes came from Jutland, so they were part of what would now be Denmark. The Angles came from just across the water, I think.
Right.
There was...
Okay.
Yeah.
And gradually these people just became the Saxons.
Yes. Even by the Venerable Bede's time, they were the Saxons. He doesn't really know where the Saxons came from. There is a really good chance that these Saxons were here for a long time, and from even earlier as part of the Roman occupation. We've got lots of Roman stuff here. We've got Fishbourne Roman Palace, which was one of the very early Roman sites. They believe that it was Toddy Dimnas, I don't know what his name is, some Roman name, invited them in, the Romans in.
Right. Yes. Good for him.
Yes,
well done.
It's nice. Yes, try going to talk to the people at the Anglesey Druid Order, knowing you and your great shame that you come from Sussex.
Yes, right. Yes, I've heard that he was the one who sort of said, just come over and bring wine. You can almost hear it.
But I think it's because the early tribes that came over, and we're talking Caesar this time, we're talking in the times of Caesar, so people were already come over from Belgium, or the Belgic peoples, and they were escaping from Caesar and coming over here.
Yes.
And this whole area, from pretty much all the way down to Dover up to Hampshire, was where the Belgic peoples lived.
Right.
So they were sort of a mix of Germanic and Gaulish.
Yeah.
They weren't really one or the other.
Yes.
And so they came over early, and this place, apparently Caesar was told that this whole place was like a breadbasket heaven.
Yeah.
It was already under a manorial type of structure. And then when the Romans left, they left their manorial people in charge.
Yes.
Who were by that time already readily mixed with whoever was there.
And everything else. And,
yes.
I mean, we can see even to the day what happens when you leave a political vacuum.
Yes.
So there we go. All right.
Yeah.
So looking around here as well, because what we do know about Sussex is that it was we had the Forest of Anderida and Arida here. And that went all the way from Dover right the way down to sort of Southampton, as far as I can remember. That kind of.
I think it's Pevensey is because that's the city,
fort.
The fort of Anderida Fort.
Yes.
Then it goes all the way between the North and the South Downs, right the way to Hampshire. Yes.
And that would still have been here to a certain degree at that point, because I remember the story of it. St Wilfrid, is it, who landed and was almost killed because the place was, even in the 700s, was still a pagan place.
Definitely.
And St Wilfrid landed, and he was the one who began to convert, people onto the Christian path. But it had malaria, didn't it? And this forest was
I should imagine
swamps and everything.
Yeah.
Looking around now, it's hard to believe
Yeah.
that Sussex, one of the gardens of England, was once so inhospitable and cut off from the rest of the country.
Yeah, well, you couldn't get down. I mean, you could go via Worth.
Okay, up near Worth.
Up near Worth was one of the crossing points. You could get down south from a road that went through Worth.
Right, okay.
To the south of the Weald, and you could get down, I think, in a couple of other places, but they were the only places
open
that you could travel through, especially in the winter when it became so muddy. And there's these wondrous jokes of you're walking along the road and you can see a hat, and somebody picks the hat up and there's a man's head under it, and oh my gosh, how long have you been there? Well, I seem to got stuck in the mud, and my horse, which is I'm sitting on, it's beneath me.
Wow.
And we'd already climbed onto a wagon to stop ourselves from sinking.
Yes, and that was Sussex.
And that was Sussex Weald, the Sussex Weald.
Yeah, and so these hill forts would have looked out upon a very different landscape, wouldn't they?
Yes.
They would have been literally palisaded with a big fence or something, maybe here, I don't know. But you would have just seen these settlements on the hills amongst the forest.
Yes.
Isn't that, I mean, you look out there and go, wow,
And of course, another thing you have to think of the forest is created of groups of trees and then open land, a bit like the New Forest.
Yeah, yes.
If you go across the New Forest, you can actually see a lot, and you think, well, where's the New Forest?
It's more like
expecting all the trees. It's moorland, it's clumps of
heather,
brush and all sorts of things like that. And that's what Anderida would have been like.
Yeah.
And if there's a place just north of here called Knepp where they're rewilding everything. It's an estate where they're rewilding, and I love going for walks there, but not this time of year. No, because
it's been properly rewilded.
And they've got the cattle in, so they did use it for cattle farming.
Yeah.
Especially the edges. So if you went, if you had crops growing south of the South Downs here, and you'd then in the summer move your cattle up into the Weald, because they'd browse the trees and bits and pieces, and they could cope with the mud that was left.
Sure.
But it's really, really fascinating. And then towards Eastbourne end, they had a lot more iron. So even during Roman times, the Romans opened up the iron smelting works and things.
There's an iron tradition up Thundersbarrow Hill as well.
Yes.
You can walk there when they've ploughed the field within the hill fort. Okay, is that woodpecker?
Yeah, it might be.
Woodpecker, wow. And you can literally see the slag on the top there. And the other thing I love about this Thundersbarrow Hill, and it's probably the same here if they've ploughed around it, is you can find fossilised sea urchins within the chalk as well. Yeah. Okay, well,
it is just really, really fascinating.
It is.
I think I saw the woodpecker, by the way.
Okay, well, that's lovely.
Yes,
that's lovely.
It is gorgeous. You can see Arundel Castle from here as well. If you go out by the trig point.
Well, let's go up by the trig point.
Okay,
let's go. Okay, so we've walked along a little bit towards the trig point, and there's a patch of grass, and that's where the old miller's windmill was.
Yes. Yes.
Is that on the edge of the?
It
right
is.
On the edge, or is it within the hill fort?
It's sort of just on the edge. It's
Okay. And then you've got these twin pits here. Now, if this was on Sisbury, I'd say flint mines.
Yeah, but no, it's not. It's not flint mines. It's very likely to be Second World War installations. They had quite a lot.
Yes.
Up here.
There's one on Caburn as well, isn't there?
Yes.
Yeah. That is marked as such. Yeah.
Which is quite interesting. I mean, it shows how history travels right the way through.
Well,
It's just lovely to learn where you're sort of coming from while you're travelling to where you're going to.
Absolutely. And something that was used, this one might not have been used as a defensive thing. It might have been a gathering point, and the settlement may have been outside. But if it did have the hill fort idea at some point, being used as a defence, and then thousands of years later, an installation being placed upon it to use it as a defence against,
definitely.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Arundel Castle.
Oh yes, I can see
There's a head
Arundel
up there.
Castle just peeking out between the hills. It's a beautiful. I'm still amazed that we can see the Isle of Wight from here.
Yeah.
I wish you could see this, podcast listeners, because it really is the most glorious, beautiful winter
It's not the
day.
clearest Isle of Wight at the moment.
No.
It is where the sort of the high clouds are, but it's over there, and it is clear. On a clear day, you can really, really see it. Which means you can see the backs of Portsmouth.
Yeah. Now, you've got a huge interest in Saxon and the runes particularly, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
So what's the attraction? Where did the runes appear in your life?
In my life, they appeared back in the 80s, but it was definitely the Elder Fusark, and it was definitely Ralph Bloom's.
Oh, good
set.
old Ralph Bloom.
Good old Ralph
I
Bloom.
bought a set from W.H. Smith's, I think I got mine
Yeah, I
from.
probably got mine from the same place.
Yeah.
And it was just, I just sort of found them quite fascinating, and I used to love writing in them. Trying to learn out what they sounded like and write to them and write messages, uses it like a code.
Yeah.
And things like that. Then left them behind a bit. I've always kept my eyes open, but then I can't remember exactly. I think it was just trying to learn a little bit more about the Saxon era, because I've started with my history back to Neolithic, and I've gradually moved forward. I got to 63 and I'm at the Saxons, a bit of the Normans, because I work at I work in a Norman castle, Arundel Castle in the summer. But they're as far forward as I've got.
Right. Yeah.
So when I was looking at that, then and J.R.R. Tolkien and people like that, now he used the runes. He used the English runes. He called them the English runes. A lot of people call them the Anglo-Saxon runes or the Anglo-Frisian Futhorc. Tolkien called them the English runes, and he used them around the Hobbit, the book of the Hobbit, and all sorts of things like that. And I'm just thinking, well, this is really, really fascinating. So then I started looking at the Old English rune poem, being the oldest version of what these runes could possibly mean.
Right. Yeah.
And all the Saxon scholars, they study it. If you're doing anything Saxon, really, you study the OERP.
Right.
Especially, as it's the language, and it's associated with the language, so each one of those runes would have a sound that was used in Old English. Interestingly, it's younger, obviously, than the Elder Fusark, which is the oldest rune row that they've found. They already knew which order it went into because they seem to write it in order. So the oldest find is the Kilver stone with the Elder Fusark. The Kilver stone is in an order that is the same as you would.
I would recognise it.
Yes.
It spells Futhark.
It spells Fusark at the beginning, yes.
Yeah.
The Old English spells Futhorc, so it's slightly different because the language had changed. So the Elder is more the early Germanic, common Germanic language based, and then English has developed out of that. So as people move on, their A's turn to A, or As turn to R's, and R's and O's, and oak even in the English Futhorc is AC, and you'd think that was Ac, but actually it's Orc. Orc. It has more of a R sound.
That sounds proper Yorkshire.
Yeah, but it Orc. It moves.
Yeah.
The sounds move, so it's slightly different, and there's 29 runes.
Okay. Right.
In the English Futhorc.
Yeah.
So I just got fascinated by it, and then I was reading loads and loads of people's versions of what the runes mean. And you go to different places, and they're all basically sort of mean the same, but everybody has their own attachment.
And those
to the
meanings,
runes.
are they within the Old English rune?
They're often based on the Old English rune poem,
Okay. So
or
these
what people
are
have decided.
traceable back to an ancient text.
Yes, and there is a Norwegian one. It's not as old as the Old English rune poem, and there's an Icelandic one, so people will join those in. The Norse runes, there's only 16 of those in their rune row.
Oh right. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So as a usable rune row, the English runes are definitely the longer one.
Yeah.
So I'm reading everybody else's view on what it is and trying to find my view on what it is, and then until I decided, hey, why don't I just go back to what the poem says and then look at how that could develop as a meaning that would mean something to me as well as others.
Yeah.
And that sort of study and that's what I encouraged in my book when I wrote my book, and with the use of rune cards that I've just developed and out for sale, is to have a look at what the ancients used to do, see if that can be related to what you do.
Right. Yeah.
So if for instance, you've got one rune which is the cross, which is probably the most famous, which is Givu, or Gebo, or whatever people call it, and it's known as a gift.
Yeah.
And it sort of is a gift. But today you'd walk straight away into that gift and think, oh, it's a gift. I'm going to get something.
Yeah.
I don't have to do anything for it because it's a gift. Or you give a gift. So the receiver doesn't have to do anything for it. But when you go look back in history, you find that a gift is almost like a contract. So there was open house. If you had a stranger walk by and they didn't have anywhere to stay, you would invite them to stay in there.
Yeah.
You would give them food. They could even work a day on your field.
Yes. So it's like terms and conditions apply in small print.
Yes,
gift.
it was part of their social structure.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That we don't really have anymore.
Yeah.
So then that really got me thinking, looking back and thinking, well, I've grown up to and been told unconditional love, which is great, I think, for babies. But what's this unconditional love for adult to adult, or even for children growing up? If you're turning around and saying, I'm going to give the whole of my life to you, I don't need anything in return, you're doing yourself down. And you're not building your own self-respect. And even as children get older, you start to teach them that if they get a gift, they should be nice about it. They should say thank you. They should, do this. Or if they want a little bit of money, then perhaps do the washing up.
Yeah, right.
To learn that
exchange.
Yes. and that exchange then...
Which is all about community as well, isn't it?
It's about community, and it's about building your self-respect and self-reliance and giving your people responsibility.
Wow.
If you're responsible for yourself, and I learnt that.
So going from the idea of just a gift in our current way of thinking, which is, I'm going to get something without really trying, that's not really what it means.
No.
Even though it's called a gift.
Yes.
And there's others like that.
Oh yes, there are all sorts of things. But by looking back, a lot of it you can think, well, that doesn't happen now. But if you learned how hard it was for those people, and then bring that forward and thinking, well, I can't just expect all of these things.
Yeah.
I have to work. I will never give... if I do any magic with runes and bind runes and bits and pieces like that for people who want help with something, I never just give it to them and tell them it's going to solve it.
No.
I give it to them and saying, I've spoken to the runes, which for myself I believe are entities that live within weird, which is the web of life. And I'm not going to insult these runes that I've asked to help from for somebody by telling somebody that they don't have to do anything for them.
Yes.
They need to help themselves, and if they help themselves, the runes then will...
It backs it up, doesn't it? It backs it up and it adds it energy and focus and stuff like that. It's like saying, here's a car, but you've got to drive it.
Yes.
I remember we were talking about Tony Robbins, weren't we?
Yes,
before
we
came
were.
out. And he said something years ago that's always stuck with me. He says, it's one of his go-to things. He says, and I won't do an American accent and insult all of my American listeners, but he says basically, affirmation without discipline is the beginning of delusion. Affirmation with discipline creates miracles.
Yes.
And that's the same with magic,
It is.
Just working with magic is not going to do it, but magic with discipline and with work and with effort, that's when you start to see those results. And it's the same with the runes.
So it is a whole body experience, really, isn't it? You're getting into that place, which is another reason why I now believe in magic.
Yes, because you've tried as well.
I've put effort into this.
Yes. Yeah.
And I've asked for help because I knew I couldn't personally do that, and then seen what seems to be a miracle happen in some cases. You know, absolute miracle, or just the pure magic of standing here and looking out and remembering that these things are not just to be taken for granted.
Yeah, the magic of
They're
connection.
the magic.
Yeah, that's it. I think a lot of this stuff is remembering. I think we're innately magical. I think our ancestors understood that a lot better than we did. And over the course of years, we've had influences of technology, of other religions telling you that magic is bad, all those things that culture and society have laid upon people. And then, of course, you've got the atheism and stuff like that saying, oh, no, it doesn't exist unless it's real, and materialistic viewpoints and stuff like that. But every time, that's why people come up here at the summer solstice to watch Morris dancers.
Yes.
Because they know inside there's something going on.
Yes.
But they might not necessarily understand what it is, but they've just got to be there.
Yes.
It's why people visit Wayland Smithy with their kids, yet they have no real concept of what it is or anything, but something draws you there. And I think that's what we key into, don't we? You know, with what we
definitely.
do. Yeah, we're just remembering at the end of the day.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And I think also that one of my big bugbears at the moment is nature.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's not my personal bugbear.
It's
a bugbear. I love nature.
Yeah.
But I remember Graham Harvey, he turns around and says, "Why do people go out into nature? They've never left it.
Yes,
they are part
nature.
of nature.
Yes, yeah.
And people still, if fundamentally people need to know that they are nature and part of nature, and that going out into nature separates nature from the human."
It does. Even looking at a reservoir and saying, oh, that's not natural, that's human made. Well, we are natural.
Yes.
An ant builds an ant's nest in a woods.
We think,
and we
nature.
think that's natural.
Yeah.
That's just the ant doing what we've done with the reservoir.
Yes.
You know, and if you don't see it as natural and part of the natural world, you don't take responsibility for it being part of the natural world or what it does to the rest of it.
World, yes.
You know, and you know, so yeah, absolutely, and it's all part of remembering.
Everything is nature.
Yeah, everything is nature, indeed. And I think that's what Druidry and that's why I think there's still a burgeoning interest in this stuff, you know, from Wicca, witchcraft, heathenry, you know, the whole lot is this remembering, you know, from an ancestral thing. Yeah,
it's celebrating nature, and then gradually, as you celebrate nature, you start to realise how much part of nature that you actually are by being in a magical place. You are nature.
Yeah.
You know, by just living your nature, by breathing your nature.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a bugbear when every time you're seeing on the television and everything, oh, people got to get out into nature, people got to do that. No, they've got to learn that they are nature.
Yes, get out into nature. Yes. Be nature.
Yes, be
nature. You've spoken a lot about, you know, that you found your path in witchcraft and then found in Druidry, and that you are really fascinated and interested with the Saxon stuff and with the Old English runes and the Old English rune poem and things like that. But to be honest, you know, if you look at history, the Saxon and Britain aren't natural bedfellows, you know. So how do you go about kind of redressing and reintroducing maybe to each other the red and white dragon?
Well, it's definitely always been within me. I moved to Wales. I lived in Wales for 7 years. I learned to speak Welsh fluently, and I became a Welsh teacher in school.
All right.
Well, I was training to be. I didn't actually become, because then I moved back here. I love all of the Welsh tales, and as I say, I can speak Welsh. That is fine for the red dragon in me, but I come and was brought up in Sussex, and when I actually look at my genetics, I am Sussex and the northwest of Britain. When you look at it a lot bit bigger, it tells me that then my genes also come from the area where Belgium is now, or the Belgier used to be.
Right.
And the Belgier came across here. And I know from other old archaeological finds and bits and pieces, they stayed here a lot. So part of me must be Belgier.
Yeah.
If I come from here.
Yeah.
Part of me will be Welsh because, hell, there was a lot of Welsh people in the north west.
Yes.
In fact, when I learnt to speak Welsh, I was really quite amazed by how far north that language went. And it was, like the Brythonic as well. It was based on Brythonic.
Yeah.
So I sorted the Welsh bit, but thinking, well, hang on a second, there's part of me that feels like it's really quite Saxon.
Yeah.
I need to find out a little bit more about that. And I've always wanted to find the links between the stories of the Brythonic peoples and the stories of the Saxon peoples and things like that. It is there. It's to be found in the Indo-European myths and legends.
You can see it in the art as well.
You can see it in the art.
What is called a Celtic knot is often on a lot of Anglo-Saxon jewellery and
definitely.
So it's not as cut and dried.
So the people have moved. People move all of the time, and they interbreed. There's no proof of the people of Sussex being killed off by the Saxons.
Yeah.
There is no proof of that. There's no proof that they went off and killed everybody else. Yes, there were tussles and there were arguments and bits and pieces like that. Fashions changed. What I will find fascinating as well, though, so there's the old stories, and you can find the links between Woden and sometimes with Gwyn because of their nature.
Yeah.
When you look at the old gods that they were representing and bring them forward into both, you can see connections. There are connections there.
Yeah.
The belief systems weren't totally different.
No.
They believed in nature. They lived in nature, as we were talking about there. It doesn't matter where you came from, you lived in nature, and that's how you used to cope with life.
Yeah.
And I know that just recently the skeletons that were originally found, because unfortunately they removed the skulls from the rest of the body. That was the Victorians. I know the archaeologist at the local museum here, and he says we would like to reunite
their heads
with their bodies. We'd like to try and treat them as well as we possibly can.
Yeah.
But while is happening, they're taking DNA samples. So it will be really quite interesting to see if there are matches in my DNA with the DNA from here.
Yeah.
And I know that, when I was in Wales, I was told, no, you're Welsh. All the Welsh people told me I was Welsh.
Because you spoke the language?
No, but even the people who were teaching me to speak it. Yeah. It's quite fascinating, but the reality is my blood, my DNA doesn't show very much. It shows some. But I am 97%, I think it may have gone down to 92 as Ancestry finds more links and things like that. Percent English, and then I'm 2% Swedish, and I'm 2% Irish, and I'm 4% Swedish, 2% Irish, and 2% Scottish. It's very important for me not to just follow one aspect, but find the truth as much as I can, and that's changing all of the time, in things that can be related to each other, because we are modern Druids.
Yes.
We are modern Druids. We take from the historical past of our lands, our peoples, etc., and then we rebuild it in a way to make it today. Just to make it today. With full respect to yesterday.
Yes, absolutely. And you stand on here. I remember one of our camps we did runes, and we had the great Steve Pullington talk, and it was the first time. I think it was probably the first time I'd heard Old English spoken fluently. And he just said these words, and we were in this field just outside of Lewes, and it felt to me sitting there, that every single blade of grass in that field suddenly turned its head, if it had a head, and thought, hold on a minute, I know those words. I haven't heard those words for a while, but the land remembers, doesn't it? The land remembers all of these things, all of the people who lived here. It kind of just remembers these languages and histories and mythologies and everything, and it's just built up layer upon layer. Well, thank you, Sue, for taking me on this lovely walk up to Highdown Hill. How do people find out more about you and your books and your cards and what you do?
So I have a website, which I don't do very much of. I do have a Facebook page, Suzanne Rance, English runologist, which is probably the easiest place for people to get to. And probably, I'll put more notes on there than I do on the website. And then I sell cards on Etsy, and I sell my books on Amazon.
Right. Okay.
And through Amazon.
Okay. So I'll put all of those links into the show notes. But other than that, thank you very much for bringing me on this.
It's been a pleasure. What a day!
I mean, wow.
Yes.
What a day.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. It really was such a beautiful and fabulous day, and thank you once again, Suzanne, for taking me to Highdown Hill. It brought back such lovely memories of your handfasting. Following Sue, you heard Hymn to a Snowy Wood by Go by Starlight, music for ritual and contemplation inspired by wild places. A lovely piece, and thank you so much for sending that in. If you're a musician, poet, storyteller and would like your work featured on DruidCast, please do send it to me at podcast@druidry.org and I can see if I can place it in the show. It's always such a pleasure to hear the results of your AWAN. Well, this music means we are approaching the end of the show, but before I go, let's have the results of the last competition. The prize was a copy of Blodeuwedd, the latest book by Jenna Tellendrew, and the question I asked was: at the end of the fourth branch of the Mabinogi, Blodeuwedd is transformed into a bird. What bird is it? Well, the answer is an owl, and the first name drawn from the hat and winner of that fabulous book is Amanda Merritt in California. Congratulations, Amanda. That book will be with you as soon as the post will allow. The prize this month is Suzanne's book, The English Runes, Secrets and Magic, Spells and Divination. And the question I'd like you to answer is: much of what we know about the English runes comes from one particular rune poem that Sue mentioned on our walk. What is that rune poem called? Much of what we know about the English runes comes from one particular rune poem that Suzanne mentioned in her talk. What is that rune poem called? Email your answer along with your full postal address to podcast@druidry.org, and one of you will win a copy of that brilliant book. Well, my friends, that is a show. Whether you are celebrating Imbolc here in the Northern Hemisphere or Lunasa down under, have a wonderful festive celebration, my friends. And I will see you back here next month for episode 178. But until then, I wish you all, as ever, peace and blessed be. Goodbye.